environmental world, virtual or actual, and so on. And from that span, I think it's within the technology that you reference, how we actually experience that. Mm-hmm. And that, hence the notion of the technology in the title, because there's no technology in the piece. But to me, it's implied because of this polar, not polar, but this sort of expansive ends of the references to time and passage of time in life and so on. But the technology is the unifier. It's technology, and in many ways, what makes things happen in between now. If in fact the experience of an avatar is technologically driven, that it's not a selective process, and again, this relates back to like a McLuhanistic theory of media, that it's actually not so deterministic what people do with technology is deterministic and leads to that involvement. If people are becoming avatars unbeknownst to themselves, in a sense.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's sort of the anecdote I would say is to address that idea of just that we are, since we're so surrounded with technology, there is no, at least I don't try to escape from it. It's something that I just try to observe and then pick and choose carefully, almost like eating dinner. You know, make sure you have a healthy balance of Facebook, and this and that, so that there's you're getting a nice, well-rounded meal. But I think if you try to, you can't avoid these technologies. And so, to sort of address what you were just saying, that this piece, while does not have them sort of overtly in it, it was made entirely using digital technology in its design, in its capture of the imagery, and to the point where it existed completely on a computer screen and could be interacted with in a virtual world. At which point, in order to have it exist with us, of course, I then had to get the hands dirty and actually fabricate the thing. So it does have that nice crossover where it could only be made using technology, and it had to be made using technology, but it couldn't exist without, just handmade fabrication as well.
Which is, again, part of that transit that you refer to sometimes, of going from the digital or virtual world, and as you come back and forth, there are elemental exchanges that take place too. And again, the technology, as the kind of, in that sense, it's an enabling tool. But I think for many, and this is again the idea of how the involvement in these virtual worlds, or in the sense of the avatar facet of life, is interesting to me in a way that it seems to be technologically driven and bears out a lot of what the early media theorists said. But and then the magic part, magic is in the acceptance, leap of faith, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, it had a lot. The magic part of the title had a lot for me. I think the most magical thing about new media is actually what you were just saying, though, in the beginning part of of your statement, is the fact that it has an effect on us, that our avatars that we exist in, again, either by email, by a Second Life avatar, or even through an eBay exchange, they do exist and they do affect us. There have been lots of studies which show that the time you spend on Facebook in Second Life, and particularly gaming, does change who you are. In many cases, just for short periods of time, hours or days, but over prolonged use, it actually does have a permanent effect. There's been particularly some studies at Palo Alto in California where they put people in avatars which were very attractive, and they were able to show how people who existed in attractive avatars felt better about themselves, were able to actually get more favors from other people. They're actually more powerful. And that sense of power actually translated back onto them, and they lived the rest of that day with a heightened sense of their own abilities. So, that's magic.
Yeah, and the transferability then is, though, carried back into, for example, where does achievement, for example, come in a virtual world? Is there a mechanism for feeling good because I've done that? Or do you then carry that back and actually the realization of whatever uplifting or resolution or just relaxation and freedom that you've had from the in-world experience? Does that, within the in-world, is there a social mechanism, or does it have to transfer necessarily, crosses back again for that to play out?
Well, that's an interesting, that's something I've been thinking about. So we get something from our avatars, but what do they get? And it's something I've been trying to think about. So if I'm a gamer and I've played some video game online for an extended period of time, and I walk away having achieved some goals, having gotten some rewards for it, and I feel good from that. What does my character get from this? And I feel like there's something there. I don't have the answer, but I feel like that character gets something from me, because I don't think that the digital virtual actual border is only unidirectional. I think it does go in both directions, that experience. And so this is something that I've been trying to spend time to think about, because I know that there is an answer, and just it's a matter of time. And one of the reasons why I think that there must be is that one thing that I've been thinking also about is what similarities do we share, and this piece addresses some of that, the physical and the digital. And you go down to our smallest bits, these electron particles, and we're both made of these things. So we share at our fundamental structure, particles which they've shown actually transfer across. And so,
yeah, I mean, in a sense that I think there is an exchange, and I think it is in an ecological metaphor, like a cross-pollination or a cross-fertilization. But I tend to think that it's really going the other way, that it's going towards the virtual, that we're propelling change, and technology is propelling change that is actually a vector and has some direction. And I believe that it is not to say at the expense of the prior environment, but it is fed from it, and at the moment may appear to be this kind of back and forth exchange, but I do believe that this direction is sort of towards an immaterialism. Obviously, the world is falling apart, so we better become comfortable with the immaterial pretty soon. But the idea of virtual spaces, I think, will help, in a sense, an inevitable evolution that is a vector towards that sort of immateriality, and away from the physical. And it will, that cross-pollinization will, I believe, at a certain juncture, become dominant at what I referred to in the essay as a break boundary point, where it reaches such a point of definition that it flips and it becomes something else altogether different. It now mirrors our world, and we do these virtual environments that have streets and they have trees, albeit very interesting ones. But that being said, they are still mirroring this world. It's like, and I'll use just briefly this clue, an example of the prior dominant media will always inform the new media until it reaches its own identity, like the horseless carriage is a classic example. It's nothing about the horse anymore, and it's not really about the carriage, but the way we wrap our heads around it as a culture. We do this transitory thing. And I think these virtual worlds are really going to be something else quite altogether different than just an extension of what we're doing now. They will hit a point of definition where it'll be quite astounding. And you certainly, with this range of reference, take into account all those possibilities. And magic, I think, is in that break. You know, it becomes at a certain point that transformation. Magic, after all, is just the unexpected. In a sense, it's not so direct in that world. But it's interesting as to how the avatars and how we actually then are serving that purpose, because or subservient. That goes back to the earlier media critics, and if technology is really driving us in ways that are dehumanizing. Post-humanism as a notion of avatars.
Well, I mean, I certainly, I think it's always gray. You know, I think any technology is never good or bad. It's both. It's neither. It's always. There's always some benefit and detriment to be had from it all. But I think I completely agree that the final, maybe not even final, but that breakpoint where the virtual world becomes its own thing and isn't referencing, like you say, the actual world, and becomes its own thing is where it's getting close, and I'm excited for it.
Well, and I think this piece is a referent. I think is a marker.
Yeah.
And I kept saying it probably in more simplistic terms as being where we are in that process, and I do believe in that process, just because I say being a sort of post-clueless, but it is driving. Technology is driving everything, and content is, as he would say, is really kind of just the pacifier, you know, and it's always meant to be the juiciest, coolest thing, because that's going to occupy your attention while the real deal is going on.
Right, of course.
And this transferal, you know, it's in terms of culling this information, which you have done, but in a very atavistic, beautiful reference of the star in the sky, which is, of course, a great human import forever. But the idea that there is, I think also this idea that your choice in that sense to participate in that change is affected by the way that we relate to the medium, and it's very important to I think, for artists to give indicators of how they can be helpful in defining it in a human way.
Yeah. I don't know how much choice I had. Again, I was sort of, it seems like, I do remember there was a point where I was working and realized that I had to learn about, the new technologies. It made no sense not to know. It seemed like it would be to ignore everything that was where the world was going, and then of course as an artist to then take those technologies and for example, I've done